In the icy Bering Sea, where winds howl like the howling of nature and waves stand like giant icebergs, steel ships still brace themselves against the power of the ocean. On the slippery deck, heavy steel cages are lowered into the dark sea, in search of the giant creature that has overcome many challenges to become a symbol of culinary luxury, king crab. In one short season, tens of thousands of crabs with steel-like claws are pulled from the icy waters, bringing in more than $10 million, a figure that makes people wonder, what turns this crustacean into red gold of the ocean? On today's trip, we will follow the king crab from its life and death moment in the rough seas to its transformation into a delicate dish on the banquet table. Go discover what happens to $10 million worth of king crabs inside the factory. From Dutch Harbor, a remote gateway on the edge of Alaska, giant steel ships roar through the waves and rush out into the Bering Sea, where the bitter cold and the wind howl like knives can turn any voyage into a life or death adventure with nature. On the wet, cold deck, sailors brave the snow and rain to prepare giant iron traps, each weighing nearly 661 pounds, loaded with fresh mackerel bait to attract king crabs lurking in the darkness of the frigid seabed. When the heavy trap is dropped into the bottomless black water, the clock begins to tick down. After only 24 hours, they will pull up dozens of giant king crabs, each weighing from 6 to more than 10 pounds, some even reaching 28 pounds, the size of a small child. But the job is not simply harvesting, but a direct battle with the ocean. Waves nearly 20 feet high can overwhelm the deck. Thick white ice makes the floor slippery like a sharp blade, and the minus 20 degrees Celsius cold makes every move of tying ropes, lifting cages, or pulling nets a tense race against death. In the cold headlights of the dense night, the moment the heavy iron cage is pulled up and opened, revealing dozens of red writhing crabs, always brings a feeling of extreme suspense. It is both a breathtaking victory over nature and the beginning of a multi-million-dollar deal. But the battle is not over yet, because as soon as they leave the water, the giant king crabs are not allowed to lose even a minute of their vitality. They are immediately taken down to the cold seawater tanks circulating on the ship, where the temperature is adjusted precisely to the degree, almost recreating the harsh living environment at the bottom of the ocean. This is the life and death compartment. If the water is too warm, the crabs will quickly weaken and die. If it is too cold, they will fall into a state of paralysis, lose the ability to move, and completely lose their commercial value. As the ship pulled into port, gasping for breath, dozens of specialized refrigerated trucks were waiting, each containing thousands of gallons of artificial seawater that was continuously aerated, ensuring the crabs would continue to thrive until the next stage of transportation. From faraway Alaska, the arduous journey is not over yet. Refrigerated containers are carefully sealed, loaded onto cargo ships, and crossed thousands of ocean miles to reach luxury markets such as Japan, the US, and South Korea. And it all had to be completed within a brutal time frame of just 48 hours. A breathless race against time, where every passing second, every tiny deviation in temperature or humidity could determine the value of a multi-million-dollar shipment. When the refrigerated containers were opened with a blast of cold air, what appeared before our eyes was the sight of tens of thousands of live dark red king crabs, wriggling and struggling in tanks of artificial seawater. Each batch of crabs was lifted out with firm movements by workers wearing thick protective clothing and cut-resistant gloves and placed immediately on the shiny steel conveyor belt. Here, the grading process is strict. Individuals that are too small, weak, or unfit are immediately discarded. Only those that meet the correct size and weight standards, from 6 to 10 pounds, are kept, qualified to enter the rigorous processing process behind. At the peak of a day, tens of thousands of crabs pass through this process, with a total value exceeding $10 million. They are then transferred to the cleaning area, where high-pressure water jets blast each shell layer, washing away all the sand, algae, and mud left over from their long journey from the ocean floor. The sound echoed throughout the factory, the roar of engines mixed with the clatter of thousands of crab claws hitting steel, creating a rhythmic industrial soundtrack that was both intense and mesmerizing. Immediately after the cleaning process, the crabs are placed in giant industrial boiling tanks. Each containing tons of boiling water, the temperature is precisely controlled at 100 degrees Celsius, enough to evenly cook the crustacean's tough shell without destroying the meaty texture inside. After just a few minutes, their skin gradually changes from dark brown to bright red, the brilliant red color that is considered a symbol of luxury, a sign of recognition of high-class dishes at luxurious parties. But the process doesn't stop there, because to preserve the full sweetness and firm texture, the crabs are immediately dropped into ice-cold water tanks, where the low temperature instantly stops the cooking process, locking in all the essence of the sea in every fiber of the meat. Immediately afterward, a row of giant automated machines neatly cut and separate each crab leg section, arranging them neatly on an endless conveyor belt, while workers with focused eyes and precise movements inspect each batch to remove any substandard pieces. Once through the preliminary processing stage, the plump white crab meat is sent straight to the vacuum packaging line, where the meat packages, glistening under fluorescent lights, are sealed in multi-layer packaging, maintaining their freshness throughout the intercontinental journey. In parallel, the quality control team conducts random tests. They measure the pH to ensure natural balance, test for microbiology to eliminate the risk of contamination, and carefully weigh each package to ensure absolute uniformity. Only products that fully meet international standards are sealed, ready to be exported to demanding and luxurious markets such as the US, Europe, or Japan. At the end of the cold chain, hundreds of frozen cartons are stacked in blocks like fortresses, each clearly printed with a batch code, production date, and destination, before being loaded into a sealed refrigerated container at the dock, ready to be sent to the international port. And from here, the king crab's journey turns to a completely new chapter. Leaving the processing plant, they appear in luxury supermarkets, in high-end restaurants, and on lavish banquet tables worth thousands of dollars, closing an industrial chain that operates with near absolute precision. Once off the cold processing line, the king crab's real journey begins. In Tokyo, Seoul, or New York, the price of one can soar to $300 to $500, and in restaurants gilded with lights, a king crab feast can easily cost several $1,000s. Not only famous for its deep, sweet taste and succulent crab fibers, king crab also carries with it an aura of luxury. In Korea, it is associated with important holidays. In Japan, it is present on high-class sushi tables, and in America, it becomes the center of attention at Christmas or New Year's parties. History also contributes to the status of this crab. Since the 18th century, king crab was offered to the Russian Tsar as a delicacy on par with caviar, symbolizing the luxury of royalty. Over hundreds of years, that halo has never faded. King crab is not only an expensive seafood dish, but also a symbol of power, prosperity, and a regal lifestyle. Today, the exquisitely packaged cans of crab meat on supermarket shelves not only reflect modern preservation technology, but also tell the story of a long journey of cultural exchange, from the cold Alaskan sea ice to the brightly lit banquet tables of the upper-class world. But behind the glory lies a dark side. In the 1980s, overfishing caused the Bering Sea's king crab population to decline to alarming levels, forcing Alaska to impose strict quotas, limiting catches per vessel, and shrinking the season to just a few short weeks. Today, every crab brought aboard is under the strict supervision of scientists and fisheries officials to ensure the population has a chance to regenerate and recover for future generations. At the same time, many countries have embarked on experiments with farming king crab in controlled environments, a persistent and necessary effort to prevent this luxury seafood from slipping into oblivion. As a bottom-dwelling species, king crab requires large spaces and stable cold temperatures, so experimental farms are forced to recreate the deep-sea environment with sand, rubble, and temperatures maintained at 2 to 4 degrees Celsius year-round. The farming journey begins as tiny larvae suspended in tanks of soft blue water. They must molt several times before becoming juvenile crabs, the most fragile stage, where even the slightest change in temperature or salinity can wipe out the entire group. Once they are stronger, the young crabs are moved to larger tanks with circulating currents to simulate the tides. Here, they begin to hunt, fed small clams, shredded shrimp, and protein-rich pellets. But their growth is so slow that it takes years to reach marketable size. From the icy Bering Sea to the brightly lit banquet table, king crab has undergone a harsh journey. The sweat and strength of fishermen, the technology that operates every second precisely, and the responsibility of conservation to keep this giant crab from disappearing. In the final glow of the factory, as the sealed container rolls out of port, the true value lies not only in the sweet white flesh, but also in the effort to keep the delicate balance between exploitation and nature from ever breaking. If you want to continue to accompany us on our epic journeys, from fields and oceans to modern processing technology, subscribe to the Go Discover channel so you don't miss any stories. Behind the giant king crab claws, a symbol of power in the cold seas, we reach a completely different world, where the soft arms and sparkling eyes of squids open up a journey that is both mysterious and spectacular. Hidden deep in the vast ocean, squid are one of humanity's most abundant and important seafood resources. With hundreds of different species, they are distributed widely, from the icy waters off the coast of Japan to the warm waters of the tropical Pacific. High in protein, low in fat, and packed with nutrients, squid has conquered palates around the world. From translucent sashimi slices in Japan, vibrant paella in Spain, to crispy fried calamari in the US, squid has transcended borders to become a global ingredient. The squid industry is worth billions of dollars a year, providing a livelihood for millions of coastal fishermen. One factory alone can process up to 600 tons of squid in just a few days, a commercial value of around $5 million, a figure that shows the sheer scale of the industry. However, before becoming familiar squid rings, the journey begins in the distant sea, where humans, the ocean, and this strange creature enter a game full of challenges and calculations. On the vast ocean, the squid hunting journey is like a dramatic symphony, where human power, modern technology, and time pressure blend to create a harsh rhythm. To bring in hundreds, even thousands of tons of squid in a season, fishing boats, likened to floating factories, must operate continuously for weeks at a time, reaching far from shore and processing this huge volume of seafood on the spot. Fishermen have two main methods of controlling squid. With seine nets and giant drag nets, they can envelop entire schools of squid moving in unison underwater, appearing from above as hazy clouds drifting on the ocean floor. As the net closed, dozens of tons of squid were gathered and gradually pulled up to the deck, creating a chaotic but powerful scene that was both overwhelming and made the onlookers hold their breath. The sailors quickly scooped up large buckets and dumped them noisily into the hold, while the squids wriggled violently, spraying thick black ink all over the deck, turning the deck into a vivid, fierce picture filled with the breath of the ocean. Alongside the giant industrial ships, there are still fishermen loyal to the traditional method, catching squid by hand under the bright lights that penetrate the vast night.
Se va, se va. Puta, que eres una vergüenza, tío. ¿Ah? Una vergüenza total eres. ¡Ah! ¡Mete la mano! ¡Ahí! Déjalo para tus fans de mercado.
Venga tú. Limpio.
Each rod, each fishing line is like an invisible link between the fisherman and the ocean, and the moment the squid is hooked, jerking violently in the dark, brings a feeling of primal excitement that no modern machine can replace. Whether done manually or by technology, this game is always a fierce race against time, because as soon as the squid set foot on deck, they must be sorted, cleaned, and chilled almost immediately. Thick layers of ice cover the area, lowering the temperature to near 0 degrees Celsius, keeping the squid meat crispy and flavorful, because if it is delayed for just a few hours, that precious value will disappear, leaving behind soft, worthless squid bodies. But the sea is unforgiving. A sudden wave can swallow a net, a fierce gust of wind can cut a cable, and any small mistake can pose a life or death threat to the entire crew. So each full net or each basket of squid pulled up is soaked with hours of tension, sweat, anxiety, and the unpredictable luck of the sea. What is special is that this profession not only relies on the perseverance of youth, but also on a treasure trove of heritage passed down through many generations. The elders pass on the secrets of observing and judging squid schools, while the younger generation contributes with their resilience and modern technology. Thanks to that resonance, the squid fishing industry operates like a giant machine, both preserving its long-standing traditional breadth and keeping up with the strict rhythm of the global market. And when the holds of the ships are packed with fresh squid, the voyage is not over yet. Instead of breathing a sigh of relief, the fishermen immediately enter a more urgent race, bringing the products to port before the invisible quality clock counts down to the last second. As the last of the ship's holds, laden with fresh squid, reached port, the harsh history of the seas ended, giving way to a whole new journey, a world of gleaming steel, light, and the rigorous rhythms of modern processing technology. Inside the factory, hundreds of tons of seafood are processed like clockwork, where every minute and every second is meticulously calculated, taking place in an absolutely sterile environment, not allowing any deviation to exist. Right at the first step, the squid must go through a strict purification ritual. High-pressure cold water jets are sprayed, washing away sand, black ink, and all the smallest impurities remaining on the body. The temperature of the water is always maintained at a stable level of close to 0 degrees Celsius, both preventing the growth of bacteria and keeping each piece of squid meat plump and intact with the sweet flavor of the ocean. From here, the fate of each individual squid is decided. The small ones are suitable for cutting into beautiful circles, while the large ones that meet the standards are reserved for sashimi or exported whole to high-end markets. Any individual that does not meet the requirements, even the slightest sign of abnormality, is immediately eliminated, because in this strict production chain, one mistake can damage the reputation of the whole brand. As human hands gradually give way to machines, modern mechanical arms work tirelessly, quickly separating heads, tentacles, and bodies with absolute precision. What once required hard manual labor has now become a high-speed process, reaching a capacity of dozens of tons per hour, a testament to the progress of automation in the seafood processing industry. And to fully preserve the salty flavor of the ocean, the processed squid batches are immediately transferred to cold storage, where the low temperature locks in the freshness and crispness, preserving the pure white color and firmness as if they had just been fished from the ocean. From those rigorous and cold steps, the mysterious creature of the ocean takes on a new form: round, pure, and attractive squid rings. A seemingly simple product, just a few rings of pure white seafood, but it contains great value, present from street-side meals to elite banquets in high-class restaurants around the world. From the seaport to the factory line, from the cleaning, sorting to the initial processing, that journey is only halfway through, because the biggest highlight, the magical transformation, is still waiting ahead. The technology that turns hundreds of tons of squid into familiar squid rings. The squids that once thrashed about in the ocean have now completely changed their shape, entering a new life, becoming a processed product that millions of people around the planet recognize: squid rings. The firm body is fed into an automatic cutting system where sharp steel blades create even, millimeter-precise circles. Each circle undergoes rigorous testing for size, brightness, and color, with only the perfect products retained. The squid ring is then further purified and soaked in a natural preservative solution, preserving its clear white color and fresh crispness. The most important step is super-fast freezing at -40 degrees Celsius, creating a thin layer of ice around it, locking in the sweet flavor and firm texture of the meat. Following the process, each ink pack is vacuum sealed, printed with a batch code and production date, and then neatly stacked in a cold storage facility at -18 degrees Celsius, where they can safely wait for months before making their way across the ocean. From the ocean to the technological chain, from the whole shape to the perfect squid ring, the journey is both scientific and contains the magic of human labor and technological intelligence. In Japan and Korea, squid is popular both fresh and prepared, appearing in delicate slices of sashimi. In Europe, it is an indispensable ingredient in Mediterranean-flavored tapas and paella. And in the U.S., deep-fried squid rings have become an iconic street food and restaurant staple. From a simple raw material after preliminary processing, squid has crossed the ocean, traveled through complex trade routes to become a familiar ingredient on the global culinary map. And on that long journey, from the distant sea to the brightly lit dining table, each squid ring is not just a dish, but also becomes a living symbol of international trade, where flavors connect people and seemingly small products carry the value of millions of dollars. In just a few short days, 600 tons of squid, worth up to $5 million, completed an extraordinary journey. From the deep ocean to the lit-up dining table, a cycle both fierce and magical. Behind that seemingly dry number lies the story of fishermen clinging to the sea, of the generous but fierce sea, and of how the human world is connected through each crispy piece of squid. Behind the bustling global market, the squid industry is bracing for a myriad of potential risks. From ships left empty-handed after a fierce storm to shipments being returned because of a few degrees of deviation in strict cold storage. One broken link, from a lengthy customs clearance, to an unexpected technical problem, to a brief power outage in a cold storage facility, can render an entire multi-million-dollar shipment useless in an instant. In this vast supply chain, every minute counts. But the biggest challenge comes from nature itself. Climate change silently shifts ocean currents, alters water temperatures, and causes squid populations to suddenly migrate according to new unpredictable rules. An industry that once seemed stable is suddenly thrown into an unprecedented, precarious spiral. In the world of squid, profit and risk go hand in hand like two sides of a coin. One half bets on technology and human skill. The other half leaves it to the whims of nature and the markets. If you want to continue to be part of these amazing journeys, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. With godiscover, each video is not just a journey, but also a window into a new perspective on nature, people, and the magical connections that flow around us every day. And as the white rings of squid close their journey in the deep ocean, the next door opens in the icy rivers of the north, where the mighty salmon once again write the story of nature's majestic migration. Salmon are among the most extraordinary fish in the world, born in crystal-clear freshwater streams, raised in the vast ocean, then braving rough waves and rapids only to return to the exact spot where they spawned. But today, global demand for salmon far exceeds its natural regeneration capacity. Japan makes it the soul of sushi. Europe celebrates it in its famous smoked salmon, and the US has made it a familiar dish. It was that boom that turned salmon into the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry where millions of fish no longer live freely, but are raised in giant steel cages in the cold ocean. Each cage can hold hundreds of thousands of individuals, an extraordinary combination of nature and technology, where wild instincts are manipulated to meet the enormous demands of global trade. And to understand that, we have to go there, to the high-tech floating farms in the middle of the ocean, where a new chapter in the fish's journey begins. In the middle of the cold ocean, giant circles appear like floating gates, but in fact, they are modern salmon cages. Each cage is approximately 328 feet in diameter, enough to hold hundreds of thousands of creatures constantly moving inside. When observed from above, they form giant geometric clusters, turning an entire sea into a 21st century underwater field where humans plant and harvest life in an unprecedented way. Inside the circles, sophisticated sensors continuously measure oxygen, temperature, and salinity, while underwater cameras track every movement, health change, and growth rate of the fish. Autonomous diving robots are deployed to clear nets, preventing algae and parasites from sticking. Even feeding is controlled remotely. Pellets of protein and mineral-rich food are pumped through giant pipes, evenly distributed throughout the cages. Sensor data is fed back to the center, showing how much the fish have eaten, helping operators avoid waste and keep the marine environment clean. But each salmon pen is worth tens of millions of dollars, so any risk, from disease, lack of oxygen, to weather fluctuations, can wipe out all the results. Here, technology plays a role not only in nurturing, but also acts as a state-of-the-art biosecurity system, protecting the huge living asset from the harshness of nature. Seen from above, the salmon farms spread out over the sea like a giant floating city, where humans and machines work together to recreate a natural cycle in an industrialized way. And when the fish reach marketable weight, the whole operation moves into a new phase. The massive harvest begins. Once the salmon in the pens have reached the right size, a full-scale harvest operation is launched, and it's a race against time. Specialized vessels slowly approach each giant circle, preparing for the decisive step. The roar of the engines followed, and huge water pipes were lowered to the bottom of the cage. In just a few minutes, tons of salmon were sucked up by the artificial current, sliding up the deck like a living river, and then poured straight into giant cold storage tanks. Right on the surface of the sea, the sorting process begins immediately. Workers and technicians quickly inspect each batch of fish, measuring their weight, assessing their size, and only those that meet the standards are kept to continue the journey. The rest are discarded on the spot with no room for error. Every step must take place under strict control. The temperature is always maintained close to 0 degrees Celsius. The stopwatch counts down to the minute. Because even the slightest deviation will affect the fish meat and the commercial quality, the core value of the industry will collapse. The uniqueness of this system lies in the philosophy of quiet harvesting. The entire process is designed to minimize stress on the fish, avoiding stress affecting the texture and flavor of the meat. It is a combination of science, technology, and respect for the natural product. In just a few hours, hundreds of thousands of salmon are lifted from their cages and placed in specialized refrigerated trucks, all ready for the next leg on land, where speed and precision continue to be vital. And as the wheels start rolling out of port, the story shifts from the harshness of the ocean to the world of the industrial chain. The final destination is the giant factories where modern technology transforms fresh salmon into a premium product for millions of diners worldwide. From the refrigerated trucks, the salmon are transported straight into a completely different space, where the ocean closes and an industrial journey is opened, marking the most important shift in the value chain. Inside the factory, artificial light replaces the sky. Steel and machinery replace water. The hum of the assembly line, mixed with the steady slicing of stainless steel blades, creates a rhythmic industrial soundtrack, the relentless heartbeat of the modern salmon industry. Right from the start, each salmon is passed through a high-pressure cold water washing system, where every detail is thoroughly inspected to completely remove any signs of disease or impurities, ensuring a clean foundation for the entire process that follows. The fish are then transferred to an automated grading system where steel knives operate with near-perfect precision, removing skin and bones in seconds, leaving behind smooth, remarkably uniform meat. Immediately, the modern X-ray scanner continues to scan, detecting even the smallest bone fragments that are difficult to see with the naked eye, creating fresh, precise, perfect pink salmon fillets, ready to move on to the next stage. However, technology is not the only deciding factor. On the production line, there are still human eyes on duty, monitoring every detail, because in this industry, brand reputation is sometimes encapsulated in every piece of meat and every delicate cut. And as trays of shiny pink fillets slide smoothly down the steel conveyor belt, they approach a symbolic turning point, the smoking ritual, an ancient technique that has been associated with world cuisine for hundreds of years. Hundreds of years ago in Northern Europe, people used oak smoke during the long, cold winters to keep fish from spoiling. Today, that tradition is reenacted in giant industrial smokehouses, where history and technology merge. When the steel door closes, the space inside is filled with the sweet, smoky aroma of oak and cypress, while the automatic system controls every level of heat and humidity to create the perfect environment for the flavor to penetrate deep into every fiber of the meat. At the molecular level, the compounds in the smoke, phenols and aldehydes, act as natural disinfectants and penetrate the meat, giving it a rich flavor and golden hue that no modern method can replicate. This is not only a preservation step, but also a transformation of flavor. From raw, fresh fish, they are transformed into a high-class dish associated with lavish parties and sophisticated menus around the world. And when the smoking chamber door opens, a thin wisp of smoke rises, revealing trays of salmon that gleam golden under the factory lights. Workers gently lift each fillet and place it on the conveyor belt, as if completing a solemn ritual of the entire industry. At this stage, salmon has completely changed. No longer a raw material from the sea, but a culinary icon, ready to enter the final stage, packaging and the journey to reach the whole world. As trays of golden salmon leave the smoking chamber, a new line immediately springs into action. On a gleaming stainless steel conveyor belt, each fillet is neatly placed in trays, gradually passed through an automatic vacuum sealer. In just seconds, the transparent packaging wraps every piece of meat, sealing in the color and flavor inside, while printing a QR code and batch number on the surface, allowing customers anywhere to trace the journey all the way back to the offshore farm. But that's just the start of its global journey. Once packaged, the salmon is immediately sent to deep freeze storage, where temperatures are kept close to freezing point and tens of thousands of boxes are stacked in neat cubes awaiting shipment. Once it leaves the factory, the cold chain becomes a key line of defense. From refrigerated trucks on land to specialized containers crossing the ocean, the entire journey must maintain an absolutely precise temperature because a difference of just a few degrees Celsius can immediately threaten the value of $1 million shipment. Thanks to this control system, salmon slices freshly processed in the Nordic seas can still appear in supermarkets in the Americas or Asia just a few days later, retaining the bright pink color, light, fatty flavor, and luxury value that make them so globally attractive. And to understand why this seemingly technical step has become the backbone of the entire industry, we need to look at the broader picture, the entire market picture, and the enormous economic value that this fish brings. More than 1 million salmon, worth a total of $25 million, are just a small piece of a global trade worth tens of billions of dollars a year, where salmon is found in Tokyo sushi bars, New York fast food joints, and bustling European supermarkets alongside beef and chicken. Japan leads the demand for raw salmon for sushi and sashimi, where a single fillet can fetch many times its normal price. In the US, salmon is associated with the image of healthy protein in everyday meals, while in Europe, smoked salmon has become a familiar luxury during the festive season. Behind the simple slices of salmon that appear on the dinner table is a huge supply chain, stretching from the cold ocean, through high-tech farms, through modern factories, and connected by global logistics networks, reflecting the magical interconnectedness of the modern world. Each stage is associated with huge economic value, where a seemingly ordinary ocean product is elevated to the rose gold of the international seafood industry. Tiny, translucent, and glowing a brilliant orange, salmon eggs glisten like gems in the icy water. But behind their fragile shells lies a priceless treasure, where every pound of eggs is worth a fortune. To create these living pearls, millions of salmon must go through a rigorous biological journey, and only the healthiest individuals can produce commercially viable eggs. In the culinary world, caviar is more than just an ingredient. It's a symbol of the highest refinement. From Michelin-starred tables in Paris to royal banquets, a spoonful can elevate a dish to a rare, luxurious experience. That's why gourmets have given it the beautiful name, the Pearl of the Sea. That value is built on scarcity. Not every salmon produces viable eggs, and not every farm has the stringent controls to maintain quality. Only those eggs that are handled in a completely sterile environment, preserving their shape and freshness, can enter the international market. In Japan, salmon roe, ikura, appears in high-end sushi, skillfully arranged on white rice, becoming a bright highlight on the entire menu. But behind the glittering lights of the billion-dollar industry lie burning questions. Massive farms produce massive amounts of waste, placing a burden on the entire marine ecosystem. High stocking densities make fish susceptible to disease, forcing strict, sometimes controversial controls. And when farmed fish escape, they can hybridize or compete directly with wild salmon populations already weakened by climate change and overfishing. To find solutions to this problem, new technologies are being tested, from closed-loop farming systems on land, robots that monitor fish health, to more sustainable alternative food sources. However, the way forward for the salmon industry remains in the hands of humans. The choice to continue to maximize profits or find a compromise to preserve the natural life cycle that has existed for millions of years. From tiny salmon swimming upstream in icy streams to golden fillets on international banquet tables, the journey reflects the close connection between nature, technology, and human hands. It is both magical and challenging about how humanity nurtures and protects the planet's resources, a typical story among the countless stories hidden behind familiar everyday products. And if you want to continue accompanying us, opening up other surprising and inspiring journeys, click subscribe to not miss the next trips with Go Discover.